Well, let me get you started on Unit 2 with a short YouTube video here. Oh, let me see where I'm at. So what we're going to do, I think you know from the lead, is that eventually we're going to spend a fair amount of time with Trump's speech, the one he gave when he withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement. But there's kind of a background to it. And so what I want you to do is I want you to read Frank Luntz, A Cleaner, Safer America. This was a position paper put out in 2002 to help Republicans explain a couple of things to voters. One of which was their response to arsenic in the water. They'd been attacked by Democrats, actually quite unfairly. And they had to explain that they were really serious about the environment. And so they had to come up with words that work to help the voters win the trust. And so they talk about some pretty smart talking points. Republican politicians should use cleaner, safer, healthier. Safer, cleaner, healthier. I kind of mangled that. Present themselves as environmentally friendly people. And I want to remind with these talking points, they're not accidental. They're the result of calling thousands of voters and seeing which messages work. Now, the first part of this is going to be background not on climate change, but on other environmental legislation. It's not bad. Some of the background will give you a flavor for how people message their way out of other environmental, other policies that were harmful to the environment. But as we get to the, a few pages in, maybe about halfway through, you're going to see winning the global warming debate. And these talking points, they were made in 2002 to help Republican politicians explain why President Bush pulled out of the very popular Kyoto Accord. And so this is really good because these talking points are well researched and they're still alive today. Trump uses them. Everybody he appointed to environmentally important positions, EPA, Department of Interior, etc., they use them. And so the point here is that these talking points become kind of a play sheet for not only conservative politicians, but the talking heads on television and radio who support them. And Trump will really make great use of this when we get to it. But so does his Interior Secretary, Ryan Zinke, when you see in the videos that'll follow. So, become familiar with these talking points. They're not accidental. They're based on thousands and thousands of dollars worth of research. What do the voters want to hear? Pay attention to these and always think of them in terms of not just what they say, but also how they appeal to voters. Luntz always has language that works. That way your busy politician who has no time to really think or know much can pick up a cue card and have an answer. If somebody asks a question, over the radio or they get buttonholed at an airport, they can rehearse these. They always know what to say, words that work. And so when you have a lot of people saying the same things, well, it's not a mistake. It's not by chance. It's the fact that they're all reading from the same playbook. So get really important with Luntz and language that works, words that work. And keep in mind, people don't use the exact arguments always, but they do use, this thing is not scrolling well. Anyway, I'm trying to highlight it. There it goes. They don't use the exact words, that they do use the exact arguments. So there's not a lot of new under the sun here. So read these, get an idea of how and why they appeal to the voters, pay special attention to the talking points and the box talking points. That'll be the first part. That's going to be, the backbone of this exercise for this week. So know that, get a feel for it, talk to it, read these words that work. Ask yourself, why would the voters want to hear that? How would that move them? Kind of know them so that you can almost savor their flavor. And then after you do that, I'm going to move you into CFACT, it's a fossil fuel industry funded business group. They have a lot of talking points at the bottom of this thing that I have to link here. I guess I didn't need to go that far, but anyway, at the bottom of it, you'll see a lot of talking points. It's the same logic. Out of that 7.5 million, about 3.5 came from the Koch brothers. ExxonMobil used to donate to these folks. So this is message and money at work. The oil companies pay for this stuff, and it works. It gets sent out. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go back and, oh, here we go. All right, there we are. So let me go back into the module. Look at some of the CFACT. Here's a short list of CFACT Luntz-like talking points here. That'll make it a little bit easier to follow. And then after you've got a pretty good feel for that, Luntz, primarily CFACT as well, and you get an idea of, just from your critical thinking, why the voters might be taken in by these appeals, then look at it in action. Here, Trump uses one common thread of denial, and I have a discussion post. I want you to combine Luntz or CFACT talking points with those of Trump, and then explain how that appeals to voters. Rush Limbaugh, the same thing. When you get into him, the Heartland Institute, you'll see a couple of people you'll recognize from Merchants of Doubt. It's the same group, the same people, except this is their conservative radio mouthpiece. Ryan Zinke, Trump's Secretary of the Interior, getting grilled by Al Franken. He's cool. He uses 3 or 4 of the Luntz talking points. He really knows this stuff. He's very good at this. Rick Perry, excellent stuff here. And then he also uses some pretty solid talking points. And then you get a couple of background things about his financial connection to coal. And Bernie Sanders digging into Zinke. Zinke will use a number of the talking points and some of the mischief he's gotten into along the way. Bernie Sanders digging into former EPA chief Scott Pruitt. That's the Environmental Protection Agency. Odd place to put an oil man, but Pruitt's getting grilled over the coals here. And here's another thing about Pruitt and climate denial. And then you can go into the conservative television stations like Fox and Friends. They also have speakers who pretty much sing for supper, use the denialist line. Sean Hannity, the same thing. Here's a good clip of him. Global warming. Now, these aren't appealing to voters directly, like Hannity isn't running for office, but he does keep the very largely conservative audience of Fox News focused on climate denial. And then Trump's economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, another one starting at minute 606. And Rick Santorum. There's a lot there. There are 10. You don't have to use all 10, but use half of them. I'll make that clear with the assignment when I put that in the a page. So use half of these things and comment thoughtfully on them. Make sure that you really write something that you might even be able to use in your essay. So develop them into solid paragraphs. The directions for that are in the discussions themselves. And this is kind of context. And then next week we'll look at Trump's speech upon pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement. And this will give you a good idea of how the message of the climate denialist gets translated into a message that appeals to voters. And that's kind of where the rubber hits the road here. It's not just enough to have ideas. You have to convince people that these ideas are true, and therefore they're not really in a big hurry for any legislation to combat climate change. I hope this helps you get an idea of the scope of this week's work. I want you to respond to 5 of these discussions by Friday, July 5th. And I think this will help you get ready for that.